The map you know is a lie. Berlin, Iowa, July 19, 1918, a humid afternoon in a packed town hall. A member of the town council rises to speak. His argument is simple and born of wartime anger. With local boys fighting and dying in Europe, he argues that living in a town named after the enemy's capital is an insult, a stain on their patriotism. A vote is taken. The motion passes. The name Berlin, a name carried by the town's founding German families, is officially erased. From this day forward, the town will be known as Lincoln, Iowa. But the men in that room don't know the whole story. They don't know their town is just one of dozens that will be renamed out of fear and patriotic fervor. And they have no idea that the process of systematically altering the American map began decades earlier, for a very different and much more bureaucratic reason. Between the years 1880 and 1920, the names of roughly 4,000 American communities were changed. Not by accident, not by slow cultural drift, but through a deliberate, methodical process. It's easy to assume this was all driven by the kind of wartime hysteria seen in Iowa. But when you look at the evidence, the vast majority of these changes had nothing to do with patriotism or politics. They had to do with the mail. In the late 19th century, the United States was a logistical nightmare. A single river might have 3 different names on maps made by 3 different government agencies. A town might be called Smith's Crossing by the locals, Smith's Ford by the post office, and Smithville by railroad surveyors. For a rapidly expanding federal government, this chaos was unsustainable. Mail went missing. Maps were unreliable. Records were a mess. The government needed a single, official, standardized version of the truth. On September 4, 1890, President Benjamin Harrison signed Executive Order No. 28. It created a small, powerful, and little-known federal body, the United States Board on Geographic Names, or BGN. Its charter didn't mention culture, heritage, or history. Its purpose, stated explicitly, was to resolve confusion, to create one official name for every town, river, and mountain in the country, for the sake of government efficiency. This was a project of the progressive era, a time obsessed with standardization and scientific governance. The BGN was not a cultural committee. It was a data cleanup crew. The board, working closely with the powerful United States Post Office Department, established a set of simple, almost brutal, principles for place names. The first rule, simplify. If a name had 2 words, the goal was to make it one. New Berlin was officially restyled as New Berlin. Elkhorn became Elkhorn. The second rule was even more sweeping. Eliminate apostrophes. For the post office, the possessive apostrophe was a source of endless confusion and sorting errors. So, it was systematically purged. Martha's Vineyard became Martha's Vineyard in all official postal directories. Peter's Creek became Peter's Creek. This wasn't a secret plot. The BGN published its decisions for anyone to see. In its very first report, covering 1890 to 1891, the board issued decisions on over 1,300 place names. The scale of the project was enormous from day one. As the historian of American place naming, George R. Stewart, documented in his foundational book Names on the Land *, the post office was the primary engine of this change. A town could call itself whatever it wanted, but to receive mail, it had to use the name the post office had in its directory. Bureaucratic efficiency had more power than local tradition. For decades, this quiet, administrative renaming continued, altering thousands of names on the map for reasons of pure pragmatism. Then the world went to war, and the reason for changing names became something else entirely. Anti-German sentiment swept the country. Anything that sounded German became suspect. This wave of name changes wasn't a top-down federal project. It was a grassroots movement driven by patriotic fervor and xenophobia. Local town councils, citizen petitions, and state councils of defense saw renaming their communities as a patriotic duty. The thousands of bureaucratic changes had inadvertently created a precedent. The case of Berlin, Iowa, being renamed Lincoln was not unique. In 1918, the town of East Germantown, Indiana, voted to change its name to Pershing, in honor of the American commander, General John J. Pershing. Dozens of other communities followed suit. Scholarly estimates suggest at least 80 U.S. towns and cities with German-language names were renamed during the war period. The number is small compared to the thousands altered by the post office, but the intent was far more pointed. The bureaucratic changes were about making names easier to write. The wartime changes were about erasing a heritage deemed un-American. So when you look at an American map today, you are not just seeing a guide to geography. You are looking at a living document, a layered record of the country's history and its anxieties. Most of the 4,000 changes were the product of a rational, bureaucratic system trying to impose order on a chaotic landscape. A project of data management that, for the most part, has been forgotten. But layered on top of that is a scar tissue of names born from fear. Names like Lincoln and Pershing that replaced Berlin and Germantown. They sit on the map today, their violent origins mostly unknown, a quiet testament to a time when a name could be seen as an act of treason. This is the story of how two very different historical forces, one of order and one of fear, reshaped the identity of America one town name at a time. The map records both.